Welcome back to Take a Break. I'm Tim Stenovec in New York. Deutsche Bank is considering allowing its New York staff to move to other hub cities across the U.S. That's just shy of 5,000 employees. The German lender hasn't laid out any concrete plans yet, but is trying to map out what office work will look like in a post-pandemic world. Here to discuss is Bloomberg News' Wall Street reporter Sonali Basak live in New York. Sonali, it's good to see you this afternoon. Give us an idea of Deutsche Bank's plans. How does moving staff to other hub cities benefit it as an organization?
Well, for one thing, Tim, it takes care of a lot of costs, right? Because cities outside of New York tend to be cheaper in terms of real estate. And if there are low tax cities as well, it could be cheaper for the employee base. But on top of that, and by the way, that's something that every bank across Manhattan is really considering, every asset manager as well. But remember, there are no concrete plans like you had said. Deutsche Bank is already moving to a smaller location in New York after years of really already downsizing their footprint in this city.
I guess my question is with all the news of financial organizations sort of allowing their employees to work remotely and thinking about this, is New York City going to remain a financial hub?
That's the main question. And, Christiana Riley, the head of the Americas at Deutsche Bank, who did this interview with the Financial Times over the weekend, she really said, yes, New York is still going to be a center of innovation here. Remember, we have a lot of big tech companies that are still keeping a major presence here. So there is talent. The question is, what type of talent? A big problem we're having with all the banks that are looking at doing more of this is they find their younger staff will be in New York and coming into the office, and the older staff is not necessarily always there to train them. That's a big hurdle that everyone is trying to come across this year, how to keep people together, how to train teams, and how to bring people up. This is an apprenticeship culture on Wall Street where people are expected to come into the office.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen on Zoom, Sonali. We certainly haven't seen that play out. I'm wondering about this news in the context of Goldman Sachs that you guys reported just last week, thinking about scouting locations in Florida for its asset management division. When you think about all of these things collectively, do you see some sort of move widespread with the financial industry to Florida?
So it's not just Florida, by the way, Tim. It's Dallas. I wonder about Denver as well, because we're seeing so many big tech firms move there too. Bankers tend to go where their clients go. And asset managers also are major clients, and you're seeing more and more asset managers move to Florida. Everyone keeps asking, has this been happening for a while, or is this year really different? Well, it's like anything else in COVID, where the change is accelerating much more quickly than it had in prior years. So we've been seeing it for a while in some sense, but this year we are seeing more, as well as this change in culture on Wall Street to allow people to work from different locations. I mean, Christiana Riley was at Deutsche Bank was one of the first banks to say late summer that it wouldn't really be until 2021 before we saw people back in the office in a bigger way anyways.
The big question, though, that I have is do employees actually want this? Because if we think about New York City, I think it attracts a lot of people for a lot of the reasons that make New York City great. Now, at the same time, we haven't been able to experience those things here in New York because of the pandemic, and everything has been closed, and it's certainly a different city. But do employees that you've spoken to, Sonali, actually want to leave the city and go other places?
It's a huge mix. There are some people that say, absolutely not. I'm a New Yorker myself. This is the best city in the world. But there are a lot of other people that say, why am I living this lifestyle here when I can be paying less in rent, living somewhere warmer with a more livable business culture? That is a real question. We are seeing some of this push come on the behalf of the employees as well. And another big change that, whether anyone likes it or not, is pretty dramatic, is the banks and the employers are realizing they don't need to be hiring out of the same schools that they had been their entire lives. They don't need to be hiring only from the Ivy Leagues. They can be hiring outside of Delaware, where there's a robust set of schools, outside of Florida and in Texas. And so that will ultimately probably be better for society, but giving a broader a broader talent pool to these firms. But again, it draws a lot of questions as to what New York as a cultural center of the country will be.
So we've seen this play out in Silicon Valley over the last few months. I think tech firms were among the first to really think about their employees working remotely. But along with that came this idea of tech companies paying their workers less to live in less expensive areas. Is there any indication that at this point, if somebody were to relocate for a financial firm from New York City to a less expensive area, they would take a hit in salary?
Yes, and if not right away, over a longer period of time, because the idea here is you don't need as much to live in those areas. So if you're paying 30% less in taxes or however much it is, then what is the rationale to keep on giving you more money? And the more the other real big fear that really exists, Tim, is if banks and asset managers start to move their hubs to different places and employees don't go with them, then that really saves the banks a lot in terms of severance costs to just kind of get up and move.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Depressing but true. Bloomberg News' Wall Street reporter Sonali Basak live here in New York City. Sonali, thanks for your time.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.